All right, we're back. We're still on page 8. We're going to knock this out. What we want to do is we want to find n. How do you find n for each angle in the table? So this has been vexing us a little bit, but there's actually something we know related to this if you think about it. So you really got to think about it, though. You got to look through your table. You got to find your work that led to n, right? So when I got this n equals 2, what I really had was 2.083. And something is going to turn that into just 2. And then it's also going to turn 17.693 into just 17, 12.792 into just 12. So at this point, you're thinking, yeah, you just get rid of the decimal part. But then you hit the next one. So for the next one, you get negative 1.75. We need to turn that into negative 2. So now let's start thinking, like, what do we know that could do this? So, and then it did it for this. Negative 20 point whatever became negative 21. It wouldn't have mattered if it was negative 20.995. It still would have been negative 21. If it was negative 20.001, it would have been negative 21. So that's a big deal. So here's what I think we're dealing with. I'm going to say, so let's say that we get our division, right? So, nope. Man, I really thought that was going to be vertical. Here we go. I'm trying to draw a vertical axis for my y-axis. And then let's do this. Okay. So what should we call it? I'm going to say this is like our quotient axis, I guess. So when we did like the angle divided by the revolutions, we got like a quotient, right? So I'm going to say this is just, let's say it's x over 360, right? That's our x over 360 axis. That's kind of weird. And then we're also going to have an n axis. Okay, so if x over 360 gave me anything between 0 and 1, but not including 1, if it gave me anything between 0 and 1, so if this gave me anything between 0 and 1, I would have used 0 as n, right? So like if I do 55 divided by 360, that's a decimal that's less than 1. If I did 359 divided by 360, that's a decimal less than 1. It's always going to be n equals 0 because you have the principal coterminal angle. The principal coterminal angle always gives you an n of 0 because you don't need to rotate from it, right? So everything, not including 360, not including a quotient of 1, would have given us 0, including 0, right? So we would have this. Okay, let's think about this. 361 divided by 360 gives you a little more than 1. And what you want to use for n in that case is you want to use 1. In fact, 360 divided by 360 is 1. So if we subtract 360 from 360, we get 0. If you're at 360, you're going to use 1 as n. Remember, this is the n-axis. Everything up until 720 will give you a quotient of something between 1 and 2, and you're always going to do this. So you do your division, you get 1.5. Use n equals 1. Do your division, you get 1.9. N equals 1. Do your division, n equals exactly 1. I'm sorry. Do your division and get exactly 1. N equals 1. So we have this. Do a division and get 2.3. What's n going to be? It's going to be 2. If you do the division, get 2.8. N is going to be 2, right? 2 full revolutions, and then like 0.8 more. So actually, we're going to have this. This should be starting to look familiar to you. If we had anything here, we would be here. Now let's think about the negatives. So if we did our division and we got anything between 0 and negative 1, right? What we ended up using was not 0. We ended up using negative 1. So actually, we have this. So you have to like really think about these. Like I am not doing a good job, I think, of conveying this. What was that? A bird slamming into the house. Here. So what function is this? Do you recognize this? I do recognize this. I can think of two different ways and two different names for this function. So this function right here is actually called, so you probably know this as the greatest integer function. Right, and I think in algebra 2, the notation that you use for that is usually like this, right? I think that's usually the notation that you use. I know this function also as the floor function, and the notation for that is usually just this, where it just looks like a floor. I think that the best name for this function, which is not a real name at all, would be the integer to the left function. And the reason I think that would be a good name is if you have a number line, right? And so say you have like 0, 1, 2, 3, and -1, -2, -3. So like you take any number and you put it on this number line, right? So 2 point something would be like here. The value of that is 2. It's the integer to the left. If you put -0.3, the integer to the left of that, -1. If you had -2.5, the integer to the left of that, -3. Integer to the left function would have been a great name for this. Not the function. That's not the name they chose, right? So greatest integer function, floor function. The advantage of calling it floor is that the calculator actually has the floor function built in. So let's take a look on the calculator. So let me just actually write down, I guess, what the answer would be. So how do you find n for each angle in the table? You do, so let x be the angle in the table, or just the angle. Let's say that it's in degrees, just to like simplify, so we don't have to like discuss every possibility here. So in degrees, we're gonna do the n is going to be the floor of x over 360. That's it. So this, if you write it in words, would be the floor of x over 360. And the calculator actually is going to understand that. So let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to go to the calculator here, and hopefully this doesn't mess up the video. Although I would say my description of the greatest integer function was not the best description I've ever given in my life. So like, if it does mess it up, I wouldn't totally regret trying it again. Okay, I'm going to define a function for n. I say n of x, so parentheses x. Then I'm going to use colon equals, so control and the templates. I'm going to just type floor, F-L-O-O-R, parentheses. I want to do x divided by 360 and press enter. Okay, let's do some. Let's do n of 360, right? So it should be 1 because 360 is exactly 1 revolution more than 0. If we do n of 721, right? So that's 2 full revolutions and a little tiny bit more. So this should just give me 2, which it does. Let's do n of -1, right? So -1 divided by 360 is a very tiny negative, but the integer to the left of that is -1. Let's do -2 also, because I realize -1 is a little deceptive. -2 divided by 360, a very small negative decimal. The integer to the left of that, -1. This is working. This is actually how we are finding n. And if you wanted to, you can actually graph this function. So just graph n of x. You're gonna have to change your window though, because this is in degree, we're thinking in degrees, right? So degrees are very large. Well, actually they're very small, which means you need a lot of them. I guess that's what I really meant by that. So settings, I'm gonna go like -5 times 360. You can actually do math in the settings, and then 5 times 360. And then that should be good. So you can see there's like a weird artifacting going on here, which, I mean, the calculator just like isn't that great with these sorts of things because they have jump discontinuities. Jump discontinuities are so weird that the calculator has a lot of trouble dealing with it. So I'm gonna trace, so it's menu 5, enter. Now you just type in what you want, right? So 187 is gonna give me 0. 399 should give me 1. I don't know, 1,530, nope, 1,053 apparently, gives me 2. So this is actually working. It's telling you like 1053. So if we go back and we do n of 1053, if I do 1053 minus 2 times 360, I get 333, which is between 0 and 360. The principal coterminal angle is 333. All right, so I think that's all we really need to talk about in this video. So I'm gonna go back to the notes, and maybe I will just briefly, whoa, sometimes I don't, you gotta grab like the top right corner and swipe down. Sometimes I miss it and then it just goes crazy. So I'm gonna say on the calculator here, on the calculator, you can do n of x colon equals. So colon equals is a big deal. Floor, which I just type, and then x over 360, and you close your parentheses. And the key highlight of this is this, the colon equals. Calculator should say done after that, and then you're ready to use it. So I'm gonna stop the video here. We didn't do a lot in this video, but you know, we have to remember the greatest integer function. That's not an easy thing to remember. It's the thing that always gives you the integer to the left on the number line. Should have been the name, it's not the name. But anyway, I will see you in the next video when we'll do a little bit more. So see you there.